So some of you have been asking questions about the celebration of scholarship. And if you have more questions after we go through this, please don't hesitate and please let me know. So I know that a number of you, okay, I made a video. I know a number of you are not from the Wilkes-Barre campus, and this celebration of scholarship is primarily for the Wilkes-Barre campus. Um, but I know that there's other campuses that have this celebration of scholarship, and this celebration of scholarship is going to be very beneficial in that you're going to upload a YouTube video that's going to be unpublished, and you're going to present, your poster, if you will, your virtual poster. Now, the benefit to that, the power to that is that I know a lot of people in the industry, and all I have to do is send them a link, and they can review your poster, they can review the research that you've done, and if you frame this presentation like the industry you want to work in, and you let me know what industry you want to work in. If I know people in that industry, if I know people at Under Armour, if I know people at Nike, a student just asked me if I know anybody at Nike. I went on LinkedIn right there and said I used to work with this guy. You know, so it's that easy. So if you frame your poster from so based on supply chain management and based on some of the awards which I'm going to talk about shortly, that may be something that you get to add to your portfolio. So even though I might not know someone, that's something that you can add to your portfolio on your resume. So I have, even whenever I was reviewing resumes for undergraduates, if they gave me a portfolio of things they did in the class that was applicable to the industry, that's what impressed me. And some of the people that I work with, some of the HR personnel that I work with, because I always ask them questions. I say, what do you look for with undergrads? They say the ones that blow me away, the ones that knock my socks off, they come in with a portfolio of work they've done. This is very common. This is very common within like computer science, where they'll send over their GitHub profile, and they'll show them all the programs they created, all the projects they created. So I know, although we're not in computer science, if you start building up your portfolio of projects that you've done, meaningful projects that you've done that's applicable to the industry, not just for the sake of creating a project on Tesla or on Apple that everybody in the world does, that's going to be a differentiator, right? So that's why I'm stressing this. And I know some of you don't find value in this, but that's why I stress this, because this can be one of those areas that can be your differentiator. Now, for the celebration of scholarship, if you are at the Wilkes-Barre campus, hopefully you have went to this link here, the COS intent to participate form, fill out your name, put in your student ID, your email address. If you're in teams, if you decide to do teams, you can put your team name in. You put this class, put it SCM 301 in here, and then put my name here, and then you will see a submit button down here where you would submit. Okay. Now, again, if you're not at the Wilkes-Barre campus, you can just put in what you did on the discussion this week, and we'll be good. But there's also fear. So if you're at the Wilkes-Barre campus, there are a number of awards out. So there's going to be some awards that will be given in Amazon gift cards. If you frame your poster in the area of diversity and inclusion, if you're not in that line, that's not for everybody, right? I get it. I understand it. So because the Diversity and Inclusion Committee at that campus is issuing an award. I'm also issuing an award for corporate social responsibility, as well as sustainability. So if you were doing some research on that, you will be available for an award. But regardless, even if you submit, you're going to be available. You're going to be in for an award for the best poster. So although it's my goal for you to submit something in the area of supply chain management, this is all about you all. So whatever area, whatever topic you want to study, you can submit your assignment, you can submit your poster in that area, but please do it within the area of supply chain management, because regardless, even if you're not a supply chain major, supply chain management impacts every single industry, right? So that's one thing. And so please, if you're at that if you're at the Wilkes-Barre campus, please submit that. And then for you all that are not on the campus, are there any questions on this? I know I have like 2 emails I haven't answered yet. Probably more than 2 emails I haven't answered yet. I got 70 emails this morning. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a quick question. If we're not on because I'm at the Center Valley campus, but do I just submit the same form as everybody else and then go about it that way, or?
So on the discussion, give me a second here. Hey. So if you go to the discussions, there should be a celebration of scholarship. There's only been five submissions. So if everyone could just go to the discussions and select that celebration of scholarship. And all you got to do is put your name, your campus, whether it's group or individual, and then just initially what type of topic you're going to submit. All right. To answer your question?
Yeah, that sounds good. But for like completion, I'm pretty sure I'm just do an individual project, but I'll just do like an individual project and submit it to you, or?
Correct. So there's gonna be an assignment folder for this submission later on. This is just the intent to participate. Now, we're still like a few months, or a month and a half or so away from the submission of this, and we're going to have a discussion on that. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Any other questions? No. All right. So, and if you have any other questions, just send me an email. Let me see here. Let me close these Zoom meetings out. Oh, another thing I wanted to show is that, where am I at? Let's see here. So another thing I wanted to talk about is Thinkers 360 just published the top supply chain thought leaders. Let's see here. Where is it at? Right here. So top global supply chain thought leaders, Thinkers 360. So if you go on Thinkers 360, they just published the top global supply chain thought leaders, and they have put me in the 4th slot. Yeah, top 50 global thought leaders and influencers in supply chain. So that's pretty cool. So the reason why I'm showing this is that I would follow, if you're a supply chain major, I would go down this list and I would follow every single person, because they put out a lot of amazing content. They do a lot of amazing things within a supply chain space. I just had a conversation with Sherry Heinisch last Thursday. She's a partner at IBM right now. They're doing a lot of crazy stuff, in terms of supply chain and sustainability. Who else? So Scott, they have probably the top supply chain podcast out there right now. You can find them on Apple Podcast. Scott is a co-host with Greg White. They do a lot of information on the supply chain Now podcast. Sarah Barnes from Canada. She does some stuff on. She's primarily in the freight industry. Marcel Vollmer, I'm on the board with him with the International Supply Chain Education Alliance. He is a partner at Boston Consulting Group, so he's at one of the biggest consulting companies in the world. Let's see here, who else? I know Norman Katz just published a book. If you want to get in the ERP space, Gordon Donovan, he actually works for SAP. Philip Idison, if you want to get in purchasing and procurement, he does a podcast on purchasing and procurement. Daniel Barnes, I did a panel discussion with him in the UK for Visible. He's a laid back guy. And Diraj and Alex, they work for Visible. I just had a conversation with Diraj last week to go speak at his conference. So to go to Thinkers 360, and you can start following those individuals, because they put out, if you're a supply chain major, they put out a lot of amazing content. All right. So, and also I posted a discussion. It's actually going to be very interesting. So for this week's discussion, I performed an interview for Freight Waves. I didn't put a due date. I got to put a due date on here. So is it live? Is it published? Yes, it's published. So I did an interview with Freight Waves last Friday, and I was talking about sourcing. I was talking about manufacturing. I was talking about the ethical practices and procedures that we're currently seeing in the supply chain industry. So an individual reviewed it, and he shared his thoughts. And given his thoughts were public, you're going to see it. You're going to talk about it. So he had some views that were different. They were very different than mine, right? So that's what we're going to talk about this week. So it's not really a choosing sides discussion. I still don't agree with what he was talking about, but I actually have reached out to him and scheduled a call with him so we can talk about it. I'm going to talk about how creating standards on child labor and modern slavery is such a problem to him. So this is what we talk about in the industry. This is a professional in the industry that you're going to review, and get your thoughts on. So that's going to be a very interesting discussion. I'm looking forward to your thoughts on it. Because again, this is exactly what I did, a presentation for the industry, and then someone had a different view than I did, and that is fine. I want people to have different views so we can come to a common ground, right? So that's the discussion. That's the discussion this week. But in terms of this week, we're going to talk about sourcing and production. So what's your definition of sourcing or purchasing? So what's the difference between, all right, so 3-part question here. What is sourcing? What is purchasing? And what's production? Anybody?
Sourcing, I'd say, is like carefully selecting who you're going to be getting your supplies from.
What's an example? That's perfect. What's an example?
You have 2 suppliers, maybe one's in China, one's in the United States. They supply, I don't know, paper. Maybe the Chinese one uses child labor, the other one doesn't, and you prefer to go with the U.S. one that doesn't use child labor.
How has the pandemic impacted sourcing, you think?
I'd say maybe it's made companies kind of look more domestic instead of going global.
Absolutely. 1000%. And that's one thing that I've been working with a lot of organizations on. It's like we were 70% dependent upon China. What do we do? Because we've seen where, and I think I talked about this before, we've seen where, when China was shut down in February and March last year, see, we're a year and a month into this thing. We're a year and a month in this thing, if you think about it, right? But so this exact time last year, we were scrambling to move all of our production back to the US because China was shut down, right? Now, fast forward 2 or 3 more weeks into this year, and that time the US was shut down. Now we're like, oh, what do we do? But China was opened back up. So it was like it was a ping pong match. It was a ping pong match for sourcing. Bring it to US, send it back to China. Bring it to US, send it back to China. And now we're back in this situation where it's like, okay, what do we do? How do we mitigate this risk? Because it's my argument, and other people also have views on this. It's my argument that this isn't the last of it. We're gonna have another one of these coming in the next couple of years, I think. But we may not be in the same situation because we're going to learn from our mistakes, right? So for example, like I said, I think I said this as well. I forgot which class. All these classes get mixed. I apologize, but I just purchased furniture from this place in Delaware. It's a 20-week lead time because furniture is still shipped. It was shipped from China, but it's sitting in the ocean right now because they can't port, they can't dock. Some boats can, but some can't. They had orders from last August that still hasn't come in yet. And my wife said, "You can't blame everything on COVID." Well, there's your proof right there. There's your proof right there. Orders from August still haven't come in yet. And but the thing is, if you think of furniture is kind of low on the priority list right now. So that's why they haven't came in. And I had another student that she works for Serta mattresses, right? And for the mattresses that require the coils, coil mattresses, because that metal was used in PPE items, she said it's going to be a year and a half before they can make coil mattresses again because they can't get it. They can't get that raw material, right? But that's going to go into our discussion today of how do we use alternate materials, right? How can we substitute other products for the coil that's now being used for PPE with the same quality, right? And the same durability, and I had the discussion with her in that because whenever she mentioned that, the same exact day, IKEA said that they would buy back used furniture. But even if you use that furniture, IKEA was buying it back. Why? Why do you think? Why do you think IKEA would buy back used furniture? Go ahead, Julianne.
To source the materials from the used furniture and refurbish them pretty much.
Yeah. What do you think, Julianne?
Yeah, so that way they could take apart the old furniture and then use that to make new furniture.
Yep, that's exactly why they did it. Because where do you think all of those little things that I still find in my house like a year from now, come from? Those fasteners come from China. So they couldn't get those fasteners. So they were just pretty much taking all those fasteners out. They were taking the sideboards from these tables and things like that, and top side from tables. That was real dumb. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. And they were pretty much refurbishing, exactly like you said, they're refurbishing those products, right? So you're getting people to kind of become sustainable. They're becoming sustainable because they have no choice but to become sustainable, right? So we call that's a term that we refer to as upcycling. So we're going to take a product that has reached end of life, right? And we're going to break that product down and we're going to put it in a brand new product. So there's one individual, there's one of my peers. So she actually lives in Nashville, and she's working with a startup that has been contracted with Southwest Airlines, where they're taking like used seats from airplanes. They're taking the fabric off of those seats, and they're creating jackets, and they're creating handbags and book bags and things like that. Because otherwise, those seats are going to go into the landfill, and take hundreds of years to break down, right? So that's you're seeing, and that's turned into a huge market. So if you're a designer or something like that, look into upcycling, because that's becoming a huge market. I'm in a number of clubhouse rooms that are talking about that there's a bunch of startups popping up all over the place, and upcycling products and materials that are oftentimes thrown into the landfill. They're stripping those materials down, and they're creating product from it. The raw materials are pretty much free raw materials. Only thing they're paying for is labor. So brilliant model. If they can sell it, it's brilliant. Another individual. So let me see here. So also check out Stephanie Benedetto. Queen of Raw. She's doing some amazing things. She actually pitched to Ashton Kutcher, Sean Combs. She's won a ton of entrepreneurial type contests in New York. So she takes materials, like she takes bolts. So these large rolls of fabric, they're called bolts. So she'll take this dead stock of fabric and she'll repurpose it. So she's made a business out of things that are going to go to the landfill, and it's making millions. And she's leveraging technology to do so. So she's actually created her own blockchain application to do that. That's how I got hooked up. That's how I got hooked up with Stephanie. So I've been bouncing things off of her in terms of blockchain. But yeah, check her out. Check out Queen of Raw. There's some amazing things going on. If you check out Supply Chain Revolution, the podcast, which I mentioned before, she's on there. She's absolutely hilarious, and that's another excellent. It's another excellent podcast episode. So yeah, in terms of production, in terms of sourcing, so Joseph, you're spot on that one. I'm actually surprised you called that one out so quickly. But because I say that because people in the industry get that mixed up. They think sourcing and purchasing is the same thing. No, it's not. No, it's not. Okay. So if sourcing is selecting the most effective supplier or suppliers or a group of suppliers, right? So what's purchasing? And how does purchasing and sourcing play with each other, if you will? Work with each other? What's the connection?
Purchasing is actually spending money to get the stuff from the suppliers.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm sourcing, if I during my sourcing process, if I have selected 3 suppliers I'm going to source from, how do I decide? How do I decide? It's a loaded question. How do I decide which of these 3 suppliers or more suppliers that I'm going to purchase from?
You can compare like the cost of materials, the raw goods, because everything costs different in different countries as well.
Yep. Cost is just one aspect of it. What's another aspect?
The labor as well.
That goes to my cost though. That's a part of my cost. Julianne, were you going to say something?
Yeah, quality.
There you
You
go.
want to
Boom.
get the best product from them.
There you go. Spot on. What's another one? Anybody? So
How fast and efficient through
there you go. Fast and efficient. That's exactly what I was about to say. The lead time. Who said that?
me, Shafin.
Oh, how you doing?
Pretty good.
See, I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here like flipping back and forth to see if I can see everybody. So that's why I didn't see you. So yeah, that's the most. That's the so quality. So it's going to be cost, quality, and lead time. So whenever you say how fast, I'll relate that to lead time, right? So let's use those three examples, right? Do y'all see my Brady Bunch thing, or you see my screen? Because I'm trying to get everybody on here. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, so if I have three suppliers and I have a low cost supplier, I have a high quality supplier, and then I have a supplier that has a short lead time. Okay. Now it's going to depend upon the situation of which supplier I'm going to use. Right. So for example, if I have a high quality supplier that's going to cost me additional, if this is going to cost me more, then I may use that supplier for a private label client. So private label clients is that, oh my gosh, a private label client is where I manufacture, I don't know, circular shoes, for example. That's one thing that's kind of becoming popular right now. So circular shoes is that I can have these one pair of shoes and they're there forever, right? I can just send it back to the supplier and then they'll fix kind of like what Patagonia does. You know, with Patagonia jackets, you can have that jacket for the rest of your life because if a zipper breaks or something, or if it gets to rip, you can send it back to Patagonia and they'll repair it and send it right back to you. Right. So that's one thing that's happened in the footwear industry. Some people argue that because things go out of style. I don't care. But if I had a high quality supplier for a private label, I would ensure that I use that high quality supplier because I want to ensure that long-term relationship. So I'm going to pay a higher cost and I'm going to pass that cost along to my customer for this private label good. They're going to pay an extra price because it's private label. They know I'm the best at making these circular shoes. And now they can make their circular shoes and I'm going to charge them for it and they're going to pay for it. So I had a manufacturer in New Jersey. They manufacture perfume. So they private label manufactured for perfume. So when Paris Hilton was popular, when Justin Bieber pre-tattoos was younger, you know, and had his own cologne out. You know, they would manufacture the Justin Bieber cologne, the Paris Hilton perfume in the same exact building because they were a private label contract manufacturer, right? So because they're the best in the business at manufacturing these perfumes and colognes, the people who you know you had that Paris Hilton brand because Paris Hilton wasn't making that perfume. The people who were selling that Paris Hilton brand, that Justin Bieber brand, would pay an extra price because they can't manufacture it. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the facilities, right? Even if they had the facilities, they wouldn't know how to make it. So that's where that quality comes in. Where the price comes in, you know, for the IKEA fasteners, you know, price is probably going to be the best, right? I do care about quality, but not as much for a fastener that goes into an IKEA bed that's going to cost me $120, right? If I'm paying, you know, $5,000 for a Tommy Bahama bed, yes, the fasteners are going to be important. But for an IKEA bed, probably not as much. Okay. And for speed, as you said, for speed, for lead time, that's where our if I'm going to do a just-in-time model, has anyone heard just-in-time? We hadn't got to that week yet. So if you don't, it's not a big deal. Anyone heard of that? Okay. So a just-in-time model would be that I don't use forecasts. So we've talked about forecasts often here. I don't look at forecasts. I actually trust my system and have my system tell me when it's time to order particular products. So for example, I always say I use a 2-bin system. So let's just say that, you know, for those fasteners that I was referring to from IKEA. So if IKEA is manufacturing products, right? Or they're not manufacturing anything, they just put it in a box. So if IKEA is taking these fasteners and throwing them into my little baggie and put them into a box. As soon as this vat or container of screws runs out, right, that I'm putting into a baggie, that's my signal or my trigger that I need to order more from my supplier, my fastener supplier, right? So in order to use this just-in-time model, that supplier has to be close to me, because as soon as I issue that order, I'm using my second tub, my second vat, and then by the time that second vat runs out, that replenishment vat shows up just when I need it, just in time. So if I use that particular model, I couldn't place an order in China and expect it to be here by the time that second vat runs out. So that means that speed for that supplier, is very important, right? So that's where those three aspects come into play. So what's your definite, any questions on that? So what's your definition of production or manufacturing, which you may hear it referred to as?
Probably like how many units are made over a certain amount of time.
Yes, absolutely. You got it. So wait a minute, let me see if my thing. So within manufacturing, and we're going to get to this. So within manufacturing, you have different production models. So you have different strategies. So you'll have a make to stock strategy, right? So I'll look at my forecast and I'll say, okay, based on my customer demand, I think that I need to make 5,000 Model 3s, Tesla Model 3s, right? Because Tesla makes the stock now on Model S and Model 3s, right? So they'll look at forecasts, they'll forecast or they'll guess, they'll look at a little crystal ball, and they'll say, okay, how many Model 3s do I think that these people want around the world in the next 6 months, right? So they'll do a 6-month production run of this many Model S's or Model 3s. Okay. Now you also have a make this stock strategy. So for the Tesla Roadsters and the Model X's, they wait for that order. They wait for me to go online and place my order for the Model X before they start production on it. All right. So, and they have to manufacture those parts. Now, this is different in comparison to like a Chevrolet or a Ford, where they may hypothetically have an assemble to order strategy. So for those high-end products that Ford and Chevy has, they may wait for an order to come in and they'll assemble it. They don't have to manufacture anything. Everything's already manufactured. So I always equate an assemble to order strategy like Lego blocks. So I'm just screwing things on, and here it goes, there it goes. And that's where that term assembly line comes in. Where you send everything through an assembly line, and then it just goes into stock, right? But then there's also some assembled order strategies where they wait for that order to come in before they actually assemble it. That makes sense? Okay. So whenever we talk about production, those are the different models that we discuss. Um, Also, so as it pertains to the objectives this week, that's where we talk about the different demand flows. So where does this demand come from? You know, and we can get down a rabbit hole really quick on these demand flows, because this is actually, so these demand flows and how people are pulling demand is literally changing as we speak, because we have something that we refer to as, and this won't be in a book, this won't be on the test, this is just for your own knowledge. So we have something that we refer to as demand sensing. So demand sensing is going to be near real time demand from consumers. So some of these systems that are being developed, they're actually doing what we refer to as screen scrapes, where they're searching the internet and they're scraping and pulling data in to their ERP applications, and that's impacting their forecasts. So they're looking at social media, they're looking at IG, they're looking at Facebook, they're looking at LinkedIn, and they're looking for keywords, right? They're looking at buying behaviors, and they're scraping that, and they're bringing that into their ERP applications. And they're using AI, they're using artificial intelligence, machine learning to do that. So, and that's what I talk a little bit about that on that freight waves interview. So the way that that demand flows, and the way that demand is retrieved is changing, with the emergence in technology. And again, that information is being brought into our, anyone heard of an MRP system? Anyone heard of an ERP system? I might have to back up.
I prefer the ERP systems.
What is it? What's your definition?
Just from my knowledge, it's like a collective group of say like you have like a manufacturing company that their accounting, finance, inventory, sales, everything gets put into this ERP system to generate whatever the output that they want it to be for informational use.
Yes, absolutely. Spot on. So the ERP system is what I refer to as within an organization. Every single organization is going to have an ERP system, right? Now, whether that ERP system will be an Excel spreadsheet, it's still considered an ERP system, because each department within your company will input data within that spreadsheet, right? Now, some companies still use Excel spreadsheets, unfortunately, but you also have QuickBooks, and then you also have these large enterprise applications like I worked with. If you've heard of SAP, if you've heard of Oracle, if you've heard of Infor, if you've heard of Microsoft Dynamics, those are the large applications that they cost millions of dollars to implement. And but they are systems that inform leaders of organizations of their short-term and their long-term decisions, right? They're super duper powerful. And with the inclusion of AI and ML, they're going to be even more powerful. I mean, these things are changing the game right now. And because before I came to Penn State, I did a lot of software selections. So whenever an organization was going to say, okay, we're going to spend $2 million on a system, I always say, we're going to spend $2 million on code. That's all it is code. They worked with me to understand what their requirements were. And I would select certain vendors that I know out of hundreds, and have them come in and demonstrate their solutions. So I mean, they put their trust in me to say, okay, select this solution that I'm about to invest $2 million in. So, and if you do research on ERP applications, there's a lot. So Hershey's had an epic fail in ERP applications. I would say Hershey's is the highest notable failed ERP implementation, because they tried to implement SAP during Halloween, which was absolutely crazy. But but these things have a high level of risk. So I did my master's thesis at Penn State on ERP implementations. I did my doctoral dissertation on ERP implementations. That was my industry. So if you go into Google Scholar, you can't go anywhere if you can't spell it right. But if you go to Google Scholar, so it's scholargoogle.com, and you type my name, and you'll see a bunch of those. You'll see a bunch of peer-reviewed journal articles. So if you type in my name, you type this, you'll see. So if you select, let's see here, evolution of digital transformation is literature review. That's going to give you pretty much a history of ERP applications. Nope, not that one. That's going to give you a history of ERP applications. Let me see here. There it is. So for example, so these are ERP applications, that kind of gives you the history of them. And then I just go through and I talk about, you know, why these are identified as risky endeavors, as well as, well, I stopped my share. Give me a second. I don't know why this thing stopped sharing. As well as other mitigation strategies to these technological applications. So I stress ERP applications because regardless of where you are, even if you don't go into the supply chain industry, you're going to be impacted by these ERP applications, because you're going to be inputting data into some system, and that's going to be your organization's ERP system. Okay, so ERP applications are very important. So within those ERP applications, you have something referred to as MRP, material requirements planning. And material requirements planning is a system that looks at all of the materials that make up a particular part, and it lets you know how many of those materials that need to be purchased to manufacture that part, right? So for example, if I have my iPhone here, I got my iPhone in my hand, you can't see it. So I have my iPhone here, right? So if Apple wants to know how many parts it's going to take to make 5,000 iPhones, Apple is going to look at the iPhones, what we call a bill of material. So all the materials that go into making up that iPhone, and it will do what we refer to as explode the bill of material. So the thousands of parts that make up that iPhone, and then it's going to multiply it by the quantity I'm trying to make, and it's going to tell me how many screens I need, how many cameras I need, how many motherboards I need, how many backs I need. And that's what MRP will tell you. And it comes from that item's bill of material. Now, that leads me into the next point in terms of and this goes for anything. So if that data is incorrect, so if I'm missing items from my bill of material, if my quantity on my bill of material are incorrect, I have a massive problem, because in most cases, those materials are going to be coming from overseas. So even if those iPhones are going to be produced in China, some of those chips are going to come from Japan. Some of those other parts are going to come from Japan. They're going to come from all over the world. So that data has to be accurate. Otherwise, I'm going to have a shortage of iPhones. And it's just because someone just ignored the importance of ensuring the data was accurate and correct, right? And that's one I just did a conference. I just recorded a conference presentation at 9 o'clock last night, and I was talking about blockchain. I was talking about artificial intelligence. And I said that if your data isn't correct, these technologies that you think are going to change the world are worthless, absolutely worthless, you know. And that's another argument. That's another argument where, you know, these organizations are pulling data from social media sites, but there's no discussion of assessing the accuracy or validity of this data that they're pulling. So people are posting stuff on social media about researching anything, and these companies are pulling this stuff in, putting it in our ERP applications, and now they're making matters worse. But the thing is, nobody's talking about it. You know, so that's one consideration, and that's one thing that I'm kind of assessing, because I don't have the answer right now. Like, how do we, before you start pulling it, because everybody's pulling this information in. Everybody's pulling this information in. It's like, yeah, you're pulling all this great data in. Yes, you're bragging about how much data you have and how much the system is learning, but they're learning off inaccurate data. In some cases, I don't know the percentage of inaccurate data. That's what we need to get to. That's the answer. That's the question we need to answer. How much of this data is indeed accurate and valid? Right? Instead of you bragging about how much data you have, brag about how accurate this data is. Right? So I'll get off on that, because that's what frustrates me about the industry. But anyway, but you also have, so outside of material requirements planning, you also have a topic in terms of aggregate planning. So aggregate planning, even again, aggregate planning, that is a topic even graduate students struggle with. But aggregate planning is very important. So please ensure that you understand it. So I'll make a note to upload, because I have videos on aggregate planning. So I'll upload some videos on aggregate planning, because I've done some notes on that. So, or some videos on that. But with aggregate planning, you have 3 different strategies. So you'll have a level strategy, you have a chase strategy, you have a hybrid strategy. And with the level strategy, going back to my favorite example of Tesla, of course. So if Tesla has a level strategy, Tesla's gonna say, okay, how many Model 3s am I going to produce every week? And I do not deviate from that. Okay, that's from a product perspective. From a workforce perspective, so let's just say from product perspective, okay, I'm gonna produce 100 Model S's every single week, and I'm not deviating from that. Okay, that's a product perspective. From a workforce perspective, if I'm going to produce 100 cars every week, and I'm not deviating from that, how many employees do I need to produce those 100 cars per week? Okay, I need 50 employees. So now I'm going to load 50 employees every single week. I'm not deviating from those 50 employees, right? So that's a level strategy. So you're going to create a level load of products. You're going to create a level load of employees, and you don't deviate from that. Okay. Now, next you have a chase strategy. To me, a chase strategy is the easiest one to remember, because I always say that a chase strategy is where I chase my demand. Okay, I chase my demand. So again, Model X's, Tesla Roadsters. I'm chasing that demand. So as those orders come in, I'm loading my factories with those specialists to produce my Model X's and my Roadsters. Okay, I chase that demand, right? It goes up and down. As demand goes down for my Model X's, I send guys home. As demand goes up for Model X's, I bring in more workers. In most cases, temps. So whenever you hear of temp agencies, they're pretty much chasing the demand with temps in manufacturing, right? And then the strategy that's used most often is going to be the hybrid strategy. So I start I start with my baseline. I start with my baseline of 50 employees, and I adjust up and down based on my demand. Right. So if you look at the share, if you look at the Chevys, if you look at the Fords, they have a baseline of full-time employees that produce products, that produce, vehicles. But as demand goes up and down, production goes up and down. Right. So as demand goes up, they bring in more temps to assist in production. As demand goes down, then they'll ask for people to go home. They can't lay them off because demand might go up the next week. So they ask people if they want to go home, and things like that. And then that's where you also see overtime and things like people talking about overtime and things like that. So demand went up, and I have a hybrid strategy. So I ask people to work overtime. Right. So that's where, whenever you hear all these terms, that's where those terms come from. So if your parents say, I gotta work overtime this week, I'm gonna get my time and a half, get this time and a half, get this double time. Well, because demand went up, and they're using a hybrid strategy. They didn't bring in more temps. They just asked the current workers who have the knowledge of that production to work extra time. Okay, so that's aggregate planning. Aggregate planning is an excellent tool, and if you put it in your perspective, it's very easy, very, 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 very easy to understand. Okay, because it's something that you do all the time. It's something that you even do at Penn State. So that's strategies that we often talk about in the industry, and then within this week, we're going to also talk about distribution requirements planning. So within distribution requirements planning, we're going to use Amazon, right? Amazon probably has the most advanced distribution requirements planning strategy out there, maybe in most cases, but they also have the most complex supply chain network in terms of distribution centers. So again, we have material requirements planning that plans my materials, but we also have distribution requirements planning that plans my distribution strategy, right? So with Amazon, they have, I still don't know how many distribution centers Amazon has. How much I talk about, I should know exactly how many they have. But someone do some research and see how many DCs Amazon has, please. So Amazon has distribution centers almost in every state, right? So let's just say hypothetically I have over 50, okay? So based on the geographical region.
It says they have 110 fulfillment centers in the US and 185 centers globally.
That's crazy. So 185 outside of the US or just in total?
It just says in total, like global.
Okay.
So I'm guessing in total.
Does it say what countries they're in? I'm just curious.
Let me click the link again. I know like Canada, obviously. My computer's loading.
Because they were having struggles getting into the UK or in China, I think.
No, it says they have some in Scotland and Germany and all over the place.
Spain, France, Italy. It says they have some in Czech.
Interesting.
There's 2 in Czech apparently.
Are there any in China or Japan?
Not that I can see.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate it. So if they have 110 distribution centers in the US, they have to ensure that all of those distribution centers are effectively stocked, right? Now with distribution requirements planning, in certain parts of the country, they're going to have certain items that don't sell versus where items do sell, for example, right? So for example, I would say in Texas, there were a lot of generators going on. There were a lot of generators that were sold in Texas the last couple of weeks, right? Now with distribution requirements planning, instead of Amazon going to, or instead of these vendors from Amazon going to purchase more generators, Amazon can look at other parts of the country to say, where do we have generators sitting that haven't been sold? Right. So because we didn't have that many hurricanes, thank goodness, in Florida, this year, that Amazon DC may have a lot of generators just sitting there. Right. So they probably took those generators from the Florida distribution center and moved them to the Texas distribution center. So the only cost they incur is transportation cost. They don't have to purchase anything. Right. So if you think about it, if they were to purchase those generators from a supplier, not only do they incur purchasing costs, now they also incur transportation costs. But now, because I already have these items, because those items are already on my books, all I have to do is just pay transportation costs. And now that DC in Texas has generators. Right? Now, that may sound easy, but multiply that by the tens of thousands of items that Amazon carries across these 110 DCs. That's the power of distribution requirements planning. And from a transportation perspective, so this is a model that I built 2008 for a corrugated cardboard company. Much lower scale, but they had 60 distribution centers where they just transported cardboard across the country. Everybody needs cardboard, right? $1 billion company. Just distributing cardboard. All they did. So whenever you have material, because you still need to purchase materials, you still need to bring materials in these Amazon distribution centers. But instead of unloading these materials that you purchased and sending the truck back empty, now you use distribution requirements planning to say, okay, this truck came in full, it's going to leave full. Right? Because let's just say that my supplier from Amazon is coming, and that truck is coming from California. It's coming from California. It's going through all these states to go down to Texas, right? And because I know this truck is coming back empty, I'm going to look at all of my distribution centers that truck is going to pass going back to his home, and I'm going to fill his truck up. So now that truck is going back full, back to his home full, and it's dropping off shipments to these other distribution centers, right? And now he's ultimately back home. And that's the model that we can create with distribution requirements planning. And now, whenever I created it, it was very difficult to track, which distribution centers is going to pass when it goes back home, if you will. But now with linear modeling and with machine learning, it's all of this is automated now. It's absolutely crazy. It took me months to figure that out, but now it's like that. Right? So I put in a zip code where I'm going from, I put in a zip code where I'm going to, and now the system with machine learning can tell me, okay, you're going to pass. Of all of your distribution centers, you're going to pass these 6 going from California, Northern California. I'm up here, Northern California, from Northern California to Texas. You're going to pass these 6 DCs. Now, raw material requirements planning. Okay, these 6 DCs, based on this Texas distribution center, these 6 DCs need these items. Texas has this much inventory, but based on how much they use, they're not going to need this much level of inventory. So you can pluck out of this DC, and then you can replenish to these DCs, right? And then you also have, so I'm not going to get into the financial aspects, but from an Amazon P&L, it's just transferring inventory from DC to DC, right? Now, there's some other financial transactions that you'll get into a master's program that come into play. But because Amazon owns that inventory, I'm just transferring that inventory all over the country, as opposed to me purchasing those products and then paying transportation costs on top of it. Now I'm only paying transportation cost. So that's how distribution requirements planning is very powerful for a large organization with a large reach, when it comes to this to distribution centers. Any questions on that? I don't know. I get excited about this stuff. Any questions?
Yeah, does the system auto generate the quantity needed for like distribution center?
Yeah, so it's going to, so again, based on your data, it can auto generate. So as soon as you put in, and again, think about how many shipments Amazon receives every single day across every single distribution center. That could be hundreds, but they could run this distribution requirements planning every single time. And all of this can be automated. So this tool can be very powerful. And essentially you say, well, what's the point? It cuts down cost. It cuts down cost. It reduces what we refer to as empty miles within the system. Why am I going to send back an empty truck whenever I can have that truck dropping off products across the country that it's going to pass anyway? It's passing it anyway. Why not drop off a little something? Right, to prevent me from purchasing products 3 months from now. It's my inventory. I'm paying holding costs for it. Why not just transfer it across the country? And the thing is, this type of model is going to be, they're going to be dropping things off all the time because demand changes, the industry changes, the environment changes. Just like I said, just like in Texas, they probably have never seen a demand for generators in Texas up until about 3 weeks ago. So now the Texas distribution center are probably sitting on a bunch of generators. And it's, well, let me take that back. There's been some hurricanes in Texas, but my point is that these demands change. So it's almost impossible to predict some of the events that are going to occur. But we can be more effective and more efficient with our prediction, with our predictions, with the machine learning we have. But again, the data that's fed into these machine learning tools have to be accurate. They have to be valid. That's the most important piece, because there's a lot of what I refer to as unintentional consequences that's coming with these tools. A bunch of them, and I don't even know what they are. That's the risk. That's my worry. So, but as long as we keep it in mind that there are some unintentional it's like that it's not there may be, no, there are, but we just don't know what they are right now. That's just my thoughts. I've had other people. I was just in the clubhouse. I was just in the clubhouse room, and the one person that from Google that I always talk about, she said something about it a couple weeks ago. We don't know what these unintentional consequences are with AI. And if she's saying it, that gets me worried. That gets my antennas up. But I mean, these tools are absolutely amazing. But we have to mitigate the risk that they're going to present, because there are some risks. All right. Any other thing? That's all I want to talk about. Any questions? Oh, no class on Monday. No class next Monday. So I'm actually closing on my house next Friday. We're doing a walkthrough we're doing a walkthrough on Monday, so I'm going to upload a few lectures. And you're going to have some discussions on those lectures. So no formal class. I'll upload the lectures and then you'll have some discussions. Fair enough? All right. You'll still see my face. I know. Come on now. All right. So anything else? All right. Y'all have a good week. If you have any questions, text me, send me a message. I know I have some emails I have to respond to. All right.
I got something like off subject, not
Joseph. Oh man. Do you have my phone number, Joseph?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere. Here, I'll just write it down real quick.
717
Okay.
640
Yep.
2320.
Okay.
Text me in 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
What was your question? Who had a question?
As for me,
I don't
or
know.
so as a
Go
person.
ahead and ask your question. Someone else had a question, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I was. That's why I wait for him.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just want to ask you some different question. Like, I had a